Call the meeting to order. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the City of Syracuse Landmark Preservation Board. Today is October 4th, 2018. President at today's meeting are
Dan Leary,
Tom Cantwell,
Bob Haley,
Don Radke,
Julia Marshall,
Jeff Romano,
Lisa Tonzi.
and Kate Auwetter.
and excused absences.
Cynthia.
Cynthia, okay. All right, I'd like a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
so moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any changes, modifications?
Just an additional, fourth sentence in our old business, Hampshire Road.
Sorry about that, Jeff. Okay, sorry, fourth sentence where?
Old business, Hampshire Road.
Okay,
Halfway down, the D Manning.
to be continued.
okay, yep, thanks.
Oh, okay. All right, anything else? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as submitted?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Old business. There is no old business. How about that? New business. Certificate of Appropriateness. CA-18-13, 319 Farmer Street. New paint colors.
The owner is, the applicant is not here.
Okay, you wanna-
I figured I could carry the water for this
Okay.
one. They're just going from, sort of a green palette, green and tan to grays and grays. Grays. So it seems appropriate
A
for the
little darker
the
for the
district.
shutters.
Yeah.
Any questions?
These color samples are reasonably accurate.
I'm sorry, say that again?
They're reasonably accurate.
They're reasonably accurate, yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem.
Pretty house.
Pretty house. Okay, I'm looking for a motion
I'll make a motion.
to accept the
Yes, please.
application. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. CA-18-14, 224 Brattle Road. Replace the brick patio. Is that applicant here?
Come on up. Yeah, come and sit.
Come on up.
No,
No, sit right here.
Yep.
Welcome.
And Pat, I have,
Folks, my name's Pat Monin.
And your address, sir?
My address is 224 Brattle Road.
Okay, just for your edification, everybody else's, in the move to have very open transparency government, this board's hearing is being streamed live. We're on. Yeah. Okay. And there's cameras here, and so if you would speak into the mic.
I know, really. And I know if you wanted to point to, I've got your information here.
So, floor is yours. Let us know what you're looking to do.
I've lived there for 3 years now. And the reason why I'm in Brattle is specifically because it's a historic area. As you probably realized, I work for the city. I work out of codes, zoning, NBD, and DPW. It's very unusual, but it's just the nature of the beast at this point. I have done probably well over 1,000 inspections through the city for codes and for NBD. Most of my inspections are not on historic sites. They're more HUD-related inspections, but I am called out occasionally from zoning to go out and stop something or to take a look at something and go back and report my findings. The reason I'm here today is because this is an unusual request. As I said, I have a lot of respect for the historic nature of the neighborhood, and I want to keep it that way as much as possible. My back patio has become the big problem for me. It's a rather large patio. It's 18 by 32. It's brick. The house was built in 1940. The patio was put in at that time. The brick has deteriorated to such a point now it's just flaking terribly. There's several spots in the patio that are unusable because they've sunk so badly. And I've had a number of people come in, all say immediately it's gotta go. The cost to replace a brick patio of that size at this property is pretty prohibitive. It's somewhere around $18,000.
18,000.
The reason why, a big part of it is labor. My house, although we have quite a bit of distance between our properties, my house, the only way to get to the backyard is through a small gate, which I can get my lawnmower through, but that's about it. So any equipment that has to be brought to the back of the house has to be hand carried through this gate. And putting a brick or a stone paver would be extremely labor intensive, and that would bring the cost way up too. The best I can do to address that issue and the fact that almost no sun hits the back of my house. It's got a southern exposure. The brick tends to get quite covered with mold, mildew. I'm constantly trying to clean it. Again, I'm cleaning a brick that is totally beyond its years. So I've talked to a number of people, both people I've worked with and people I see all the time out in the field. And the best bet they could say was I should go with something like a timber truck. This is a composite lumber. Again, the other thing I didn't mention is the deck is, or the platform, whatever you want to call it, it'll be about this far off the ground. Lost my train of thought. It's virtually invisible to the neighborhood. It's behind the house. It's you can't see it from my neighbor. My neighbor on the east is completely blocked out. My neighbor on the west can see it in the wintertime when all the leaves and everything are off the trees. But other than that, that's it. Nobody even knows I have a patio. So I'm asking for your understanding and your consideration on this. It's the best alternative I've come, and even with this, I'm still around 10,000.
Right.
I've considered putting in a smaller patio, but quite honestly, everybody that's looked at it tells me it'll look terrible when I try to do that, because the space is just kind of made for to be full. So,
Okay, well, first off, the standards that we have to go by, our jurisdiction, are very clear, and one of the primary foundational standards that we go by is retention of original materials, or if necessary, when they're replaced, to be replaced with either materials in kind or compatible materials. Such things as composites don't meet that standard. That said, I'll open it up to whatever discussions.
Well, I should preface it by saying that I love brick patios. I have a brick patio. I have installed brick patios, and I've had brick patios installed for clients many times over the years. One of the great advantages of a brick patio is it's repairable rather easily. I mean, you show a picture of a 4 to 5 inch settlement. The bricks can be pulled out. If they're reusable, they can be brought back up to grade. The bricks that are deteriorated can be replaced, and you do have some deteriorated bricks. But as I look at these pictures, I don't see an overall patio that is deteriorated to the point of throwing it away. And the only other issue I note is you had mentioned something about the deck that you're proposing being brought up to the grade of the floor, and I appreciate that. I think it's significant to have direct access from the inside at grade, and if you can accomplish that with a small deck on top of the brick patio, that would be something that we could consider. But I guess I have to say that I don't see any evidence here to destroy a historic brick patio. I don't think that it has outlived its life, and I think it's got.
I don't plan on destroying it. I plan on building right over it.
Well, that's
I'd say it's one the platform more than a deck, really. When it's complete, the top surface of it will be probably roughly 6 inches above the ground. The only thing I'll do with the brick itself is where I have to put in my footers. But I don't plan on removing all the brick. And
Have you had anybody out there looking at not tearing this up, but
Yes.
just replacing it?
replacing the brick.
Replacing the portions of the brick, the individual
repairing
portions?
He said I've been told by 2 or 3 people now that it's way too extensive. The brick is deteriorating to a point where probably half the bricks are flaking, broken, The pictures don't do it justice. My wife won't even go on the patio anymore.
Have you dealt with contractors who are experienced in the installation of brick? Because most patio installers now are using the precast concrete pavers. There is some difference in both repairing and installing.
These guys are experienced in brick. This is what they're doing. Believe me, I would have really preferred just to go back and put in a brick patio. But when I started hearing the numbers, it's
Right.
crazy.
Other comments?
I would generally agree that from the standards in the district, the character of this brick patio is beneficial. Granted, the conditions changed over the years. And I see the pictures, what you're saying. You've noted a few items, but I can see a lot of other spalling in surfaces. It might be a small area, but you can see it. But having said that, one of the benefits of brick, and especially in this kind of a pattern basically, is the variety can take patching. You can amend it, you can put in new bricks and so on, and blend it out, and yes, it will look different, but you will have saved the original material. I would also suggest that and you're right, different contractors will give you different answers, as you well know, to pull this all up, get rid of the old, put them off to the side, and reset the bed for this, and drain it away from the house if possible. I was noticing that your steps to the porch you could raise it, but the rest of the house has shingles, so you can't raise it very far. But that technically, and then put a good drain bed and a good sand bed underneath it, and raise it with the sand as opposed to a plastic generational material would be much more appropriate to the standards that we have to go by. You know.
Do I understand you're saying that you want me to raise the brick a foot?
No.
No.
I'm saying that would be an option you could consider. Only if you took out the brick, you would have the chance to consider raising it a little bit, whatever you wanted to both match your house steps and the drainage, or set it back the way it is. I mean, you could bring it up a little bit or not. That would be between you and the appropriate contractor who would have experience in advising that. Well, what I'm saying is the brick naturally has this ability to be patched and salvaged. It has those two real advantages. But the primary point is the context of the brick material and the shingle house is the original character, and very is the primary direction that our standards lead us.
I would agree with all of that, and I myself have brick patios, and I understand the nature of the brick patio. I'm kind of torn because he's not ripping it out. It's being preserved, and actually, I caution you're putting in material over it, and it has to be installed in a way that it doesn't destroy what's below it. This being behind the house and not visible to the public, I don't have an issue with covering it as long as we preserve what's there. And you mentioned something about, in the areas that your foundation, if it's possible to go outside of the perimeter, make it a little larger so that you can actually preserve it. The caution is that when you're covering it with a material like that, and it's going to continue to deteriorate, so that's my dilemma. It might accelerate the deterioration with that particular material that's over it. And also how it's raised and its connection to your house.
If it's connected.
Or if it's connected, could accelerate actually deterioration below at your foundation.
Is there a slope in the patio now, going towards the backyard? Yeah.
And that's just because of the way it was put in years ago.
Yeah, years ago.
And soil moving and so forth.
As I say, I'd like to avoid removing brick because it's quite labor intensive. It's a big patio.
It's a big patio.
And I can't bring any equipment back there.
Well,
Other than maybe a small wheelbarrow.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, it's a problem.
Wow.
so, I mean,
Is there any access through neighboring properties, or? No.
It's all fenced.
That's
They have to
tough.
Take out the fence.
Yeah.
It's one thing leads
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, certainly
Yeah,
understand
the
that.
construction that you're considering would do that, you know what I mean? The contractors will come in and make a big hole in the wall to get in there. I think that, again, fundamentally though, the material is inappropriate to our standards as well.
Well, I really wish one of you could go look at the brick. It's,
We could do that.
the condition of it
I
is,
think that would be.
I was gonna suggest that we can leave this open and we can go out and take a look.
I'd love it.
Absolutely. Okay. Why don't you coordinate that with Kate, and she'll get a couple of dates, and we'll get a subcommittee out there and look at it and see the extent, because you're right, the pictures don't really, you know, I agree with what my colleague said. If you look at this, you can certainly see some spalling, but
Yeah.
from what I see much more brick that's fine than not, so pictures just don't do it justice. Okay, well, we'll do that then, and we'll keep this open. What's your time frame on this? Are you still looking to do that this
I'm
season?
hoping to do it this season,
Yeah,
but it
really.
looks like I'm gonna be, you know, the weather's gonna get
Yeah, it's gonna,
problematic. but-
yeah.
Dan, do we have any brick, if we had somebody who could help them with the brick, specifically a replacement, not just another contractor who doesn't want to replace brick, is what I'm trying to say. If we could get any references to them, that would be helpful. Two things I would suggest, even for your sake: take out a brick that has spalling, and take out a brick that has absolutely no spalling, and look at those conditions to see if the brick that has no spalling is ready, you know, just about to fall apart or not. I'm trying to see how stable the brick is that hasn't spalled yet. As part of the
So
decision.
we'll start with going out and taking
If
a
you want a
look.
contractor, I would suggest, there's a guy out east side, Canal Corners, I think is the name of
Yeah,
it.
I've heard of it.
Oh,
They've done some brick
Brick patio
restoration,
work.
they're pretty good.
Let's go take a look, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, great.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay.
Yeah, hang on to that, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
thank you for coming.
moving on, CA-18-15, 104 Hampshire Road, demolition of a garage. Those applicants here. Come on in. Good. Give us your names and address for the record again.
Charlene Patney, 104 Hampshire Road.
Oh, yeah, that's one. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thank you for
welcome
coming.
again.
Just to kind of summarize where we're at this point, the applicant did make the decision at our last meeting to withdraw that C of A and come up with a C of A specific to demolition. And depending on how that goes, we would take any new construction after that. And in between, we went back for a site visit, and the Pataines architect was there, and Julia, you were there, right? No, who was there?
Second time.
Oh,
It was
Jess, yeah.
just the three of us, yep, yep.
And, right, and so when we went there the second time, we did look at conditions. The Pataines had taken off some of the siding material on the interior of the garage, and, you know, we did see evidence of multiple repairs that have been made over the years, evidence especially around where the chimney was, where the sill was deteriorated, and so there's certainly is deterioration on parts of the garage, and there certainly are parts of the garage that at the very least would need continued work and repair. We do have a letter from the architect stating the condition of the property, in his opinion, with multiple pictures that I think you all have in your packets. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the Pataines and/or any board members for any comments. And again, our jurisdiction here, as I said to the previous applicant, is limited to the Secretary of Interior standards, period, end of sentence. In the event that an applicant doesn't agree with this board's decision, there's an appeal process with the Planning Commission, and that's the way the system works here in the city of Syracuse. So we have to look at, again, the main standard is retention of material wherever possible and wherever repairable. So it's yours, it's anybody's.
Just very briefly, I mean, I think that, you know, we just have kind of stated our position, and we won't rehash it. It's just, we've been there since '02, and we'd like to be there for a long time, and we've nursed it along what we feel as much as we can. We've dealt with it for years, and we're at that point where it's time to really get serious about where we're going with this thing. And that's, Dan spent some time, I know you spent some time, you spent some time, and it's been a frustrating process for us, this garage, long before getting in here.
Right.
So, I think the letter and the pictures all speak for themselves, and, you guys discuss it yourselves.
I certainly do want to, I think it's important to state that in our visits, we've witnessed the Patains have been absolutely superb stewards of their property. And what you've done is quite admirable and quite extensive, and that's important to say. We do understand and appreciate what you've done.
Significant.
That said, our standards are our standards. Yeah, so. Anybody else?
I, as a person who did not participate in the visit, would like to hear from the people who did visit.
Dan was there once, Julia was there once, and then Lisa and I were there twice. So Dan?
This is a historic garage. This is a very appropriate garage for this site. It goes very well with the house. It is obviously in need of significant repairs. In my opinion, the repairs are not so significant that it should lead to demolition. I don't consider demolition of a historic property to be appropriate in this case.
Julia?
I was there the first meeting, and from the review at the first meeting, it appeared that much of it could be repaired. I was not there once things were opened up.
I was there, and I'm not an architect, but visually the garage seems to be in an advanced deteriorated state. And I think that Mr. Manning, I think his review and his photographs are pretty conclusive to that. I think demolition and replacing the garage would be appropriate.
Speak up.
I said I think demolition of the garage and a repair or replace would be appropriate.
Okay.
I did not visit the site either time, but these photographs are quite comprehensive. And I appreciate deteriorations in different areas, such as sill plates and so on, and all of which can be repaired. The photographs are very compelling, mostly rotten wood. I realize that repairing the rotten wood in the building does not make it a perfect building. And the sill plates, you can lift, you can actually stabilize a garage, hold it up in the air, dig it out, put new sill plates, pressure treated, even new footings under buildings like this, if you wish to retain it. I think in this case, that it could be repaired for probably, and this is where my comments go off point. Your new garage that you showed us is not really what we can compare to this, because this is, removing and demolishing an original structure, which is part of the original designation of the property, appropriate to time and period of these houses. It could be repaired probably for half of, well, it could be repaired for quite a few dollars, $50,000, maybe more, plus or minus, probably more, but probably, but it could be repaired, and that's kind of where we are in terms of materials. I think that what you've shown us for your goals is different than what we can look at. We have to look at just this structure and building, exactly. I think that's the issue. So.
Yeah, and I think that I'd further say, again, your desire for a new structure is of a use that's different than what this is, and that's fine. That said, that is not a justification for us to, we're not allowed to go over our jurisdiction of standards because you desire a different use. But again, going back to the basic garage, it's just a question of what the board thinks is repairable and what's not. Any other comments? If not, I'm going to be looking for a motion one way or the other.
Yeah, this is a tough one. The condition overall, yes, it is repairable, but in my mind, I cannot imagine spending $50,000 to rehab a building, a garage that doesn't suit my need.
I guess I'll advance a motion for discussion. Is it to deny the application for demolition?
It's your choice.
Second the motion.
There's a motion on the table to deny application for demolition. There's a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
I've got 2, 3, 1.
It's a tough.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take a roll because this is close. Dan?
Aye.
Aye. Tom?
No.
You do not support it? Okay. Bob?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
You're the deciding.
I'm the deciding vote. I vote no, or I vote in favor of the motion to deny demolition. So your recourse at this point is to the planning commission. Okay. All right.
And we can clarify that procedure if you have any question at all, because that is the appeal process. So thank you for your patience on this.
Thank you. Okay. All right, moving forward. Where's my agenda? I lost my agenda.
There you go.
Okay, zoning project site review, 214 West Water Street, Amos Block Building in addition. Good morning.
Welcome.
Would you please give us your names and address for the record, please?
Mark Condrell, 214 West Water Street.
Aaron Masala, Huber Brewer Construction. I don't know the address off the top of my head.
Look at your business card, right?
Aaron Masala.
All right, before we turn this over to the
There it goes.
applicant,
I told you about it.
that's all right. It's there somewhere.
We know where you are.
Great way to start a meeting.
That's all right.
Some familiarity here.
I do want to remind the board that our jurisdiction here, this is a project site review. Our jurisdiction is not to approve or disapprove this project. Our jurisdiction is to comment and comment only. That said, we have had multiple discussions with Mr. Conjol about this project, and we have gone around the horn on this multiple times. And where we're at now is the latest iteration, and before that, we have had, I think, 3 meetings in the last couple of months, and have made some comments in this venue, as well as having a couple of site visits and conversations. And I believe where we're at, and this is up to the board to determine, I believe where we're at is those of us on the subcommittee that have looked at this and made this statement here at the table, that we do believe that, in theory, a building next to a building, or this particular addition could be treated as a separate building, and one that was taller than the existing building would not be incompatible depending on the appropriateness of the design. So with that, again, our jurisdiction is to comment. You guys got the floor.
You have the floor.
No.
I mean, as far
No,
as,
we want to see your latest plans, if
well,
you
I think
could.
that's what was sent in the
Right,
application. I
but
mean, from the,
You got the bigger set. It'd be
Oh,
nicer
okay.
to.
Yeah, we can make room with
And
these.
you might go through what is new in the new plans, since we've reviewed these as they come in before.
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, can we stand for front elevation?
So in our last meeting, I guess maybe started in the beginning, we've had many questions regarding exterior materials, windows, fenestrations, roof lines, cornices, all those other things. This is an accumulation of all those meetings to try and satisfy the Landmark Preservation Board. And I think it's fair to say in our last meeting on site, the discussion was primarily held to the hyphen area, to the entrance to that material. The only changes made from the original application to what you're looking at right now was essentially widening the hyphen and eliminating the balconies that were here. So this is all part of the stairwell. This is part of an apartment. And we then also brought the hyphen down to the ground level.
Okay, and what's that material, the exterior material?
The exterior material, it's a glass material.
It's just all glass.
Yeah.
So those are more up to date than what we've got here.
Right.
Yeah, because we're still seeing the balconies and everything.
That was, yeah.
Yeah, well,
So, I mean, that's, you know, those are the only changes that were made.
Okay, in our previous submissions, we didn't see your finished design on the ground floor of the addition.
Storefronts?
The,
Well,
or-
can I just back up?
Yeah.
You're showing us one facade. The other facade has not changed.
The north facade?
Yeah,
This,
yeah.
that can all be glass.
I mean, when I was talking about a hyphen in terms of the connection to the Amos block, I mean, in order for you to read it, it's not a two-dimensional thing, it should be a three-dimensional thing, and the only way to achieve that is that follows all the way through the building.
That's
That is the, I believe from your plan, that is the case. It's both recessed
yeah,
and,
No, but the
she's
glazing's
talking
not.
about the glazing.
Yeah.
and that's,
oh, I'm
we
sorry.
can pick that up. Yeah.
Well, in order
Well-
To read cleanly.
to read cleanly, yes.
I,
okay, let's, okay, this is the question that I asked, okay, so this is new, we haven't seen that before.
Right.
Okay, and this is brick,
Right.
and this is brick,
Right.
and all of this is brick.
Yeah.
All of this is brick except for this. And
Like the
these
first two
are
stories is brick.
the louvers,
Mm-hmm.
and, but it says here, these are storefronts, but it says that this is,
Spandrel glass.
yeah, this says it's spandrel glass.
so these are different than what was submitted?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, I think, aren't these the same that we received? That's a good point. Okay.
No, they're not
No,
the
No,
same.
they're not the same.
That's what I.
these are
thought.
different.
These are
I was
different.
hoping
This
this,
is different.
These are different, so ignore what you got, these are different. This is most recent, so if you wanna come up.
Slightly relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is this tree?
I do apologize, James Trasher, who's unfortunately not here. These were supposed to be circulated.
sure, I understand.
That's okay.
We can do that.
We're working
So-
with you.
So if I may pause for one quick second here. So I agree with you that the balconies are shown on the submittal we had, and they're not shown on these elevations.
That's
I have to go through this as you're doing it, so thanks. And to Julia's comment, the recess is correct, as Eric has just said, on the north side, but it is not glazed any further
Then the stair.
on the stairway. Okay.
That includes the balcony on the west.
No, we left the balconies here.
Okay. All right, thank you for pausing. You want to continue with that? lower
I'm
level?
still a little
Yep.
confused as to what this is, cause they've gotta be ventilation louvers, correct?
It's supposed to be, yeah.
They're labeled spandrel glass?
It's mislabeled.
And misdrawn.
And they're what? I'm
It's
sorry.
drawn as
Misdrawn.
glass.
It's drawn as glazing, so it would be,
Screen, like the lower level. The ventilation grill. Well, that's right, they're both labeled storefronts, but they both should be labeled ventilation grills, is
so
that right?
this will be grill work. This,
Ground floor is storefront.
this will be storefront, and the whole first two floors are brick with a storefront, and these are gonna be grills,
Yes.
Yep.
you know, aluminum grills?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eric?
Aaron.
Aaron, sorry, thank you for correcting me. The comments we make regarding your design are not hardline at all. They are general. They should be taken as general for your consideration. We don't want to design this by comments. Sorry.
Tom?
My question is about including the comments. Are the comments, only the comments included that everybody agrees on, or are they the comments that any individual one of us might make?
Whatever
do you know-
comments we wanna make.
This is discussion. You can add every thought,
Everything will go into the minutes.
and then we'll refine it
and
to our
then-
comments.
And then, in zoning, depending on what the overall board comment is. If there's some nuance to that, oftentimes I'll include that, depending on how strongly it's stated.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
specific answer to questions, make any comment you want.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just noticed that with minutes.
Well, we can make the comments, whether the zoning goes along with it is a different story.
With minutes, it's clear that not every single thing is included in the minutes, that there are some
Correct.
choices made. This gets included, but something else is left out.
When we finish here, we'll specifically ask what the board wants to have on comment. Okay.
Can I say something, just based on your comment about the hyphen and what he's sketched here in plan, that doesn't work. Because if the hyphen is here, but is this up to date?
Yeah,
Then your hyphen is this big.
yeah,
Right, which interferes with your door.
Which interferes with your door, your parking door. So,
I mean,
I'm
can
just
we
saying that,
narrow the hyphen up a little bit, or can we,
Well,
if
that's a-
not, we'll slide the door?
I mean, that's up to you, but I'm just saying that if I wanna be clear about what I was trying to suggest for the hyphen, and that doesn't do it, because that's not, this hyphen is supposed to be read as coming all the way through, so that
Right.
there is a distinction between the Amos and your new building. And if I look at the plan, if this plan is accurate, this is the width of the hyphen that comes all the way through, and you've got a parking bay, entrance. I don't know if that works with your parking or not.
Well, I just would like to add that.
That's up to you to,
No, I mean, we all have different opinions and different points of view. You mentioned the concept of a hyphen separating the two. That's a valid concept. I don't think we have to design that hyphen in width or height or consistency.
that comes from previous discussions
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
I
we've had-
brought up.
Okay.
Let
I-
let us
yeah.
look at that. I think what we should agree is that we need to match the north and the south side of the hyphen.
Which is,
Okay.
right, exactly, how wide it is, and that's up to
So
you.
we'll match.
I'm new to this conversation, but I think I would just point out that you'll never see both elevations simultaneously.
No,
And so,
But it's not.
how the plan is different than how it reads.
I tend to accept that. I think you could do it either way. That's my view.
Going back to this grill, is the intention to have this louvered and then the louvers on the north side on the first and second floor to be the same?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Be the same as
they'll all be the same, okay. And it'll simply be a louvered, there'll be no glazing, it'll be open,
Yes.
s- purely for ventilation.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
In previous discussions, there was some concern from members of the board about the scale of this building. I don't personally have a problem with the scale of this building in this site, in this location as it's presented, but I'm curious if the board members who do have a problem with scale have seen enough to be convinced one way or another.
Before I go there, I just also want to point out a change, just since we're pointing out changes. There was a cap on this, what we're calling hyphen area now, that we talked about. It'd be better to have it removed, and it has been removed, so I just want to.
do we have an elevation looking that way? I mean, how are you treating the surface?
West elevation? East, west, okay,
Fully glazed.
okay.
Glazed?
Okay, to Dan's question, board members, please, speak up. Tom?
I think that all of the people on the board, except Lisa, have been involved with your project from the time that you did the first addition to the one side of the Amos building. So this is the second addition. And I remember all along the comments, and this is really a complex. The buildings are linked to one another. I see this overall as one project that has taken several years. And I have seen Mr. Conjol compromise on things. We said, we didn't really like this, and sometimes I thought the board was absolutely right. Other times I actually thought Mr. Conjol was right, but he relented and did something that the board said, would you please do this? And I, of course, have always been particularly struck by the design of the Amos building. So if actually additions were more like the Amos building than they have turned out to be, apparently, I would have been happier. But everybody else said, well, we're going to go in a slightly different direction. The only thing, and even the business with the parking, should there be parking at street level, that was not really such a problem with me as long as the street level design was decent. And I think that there's been work to make that happen. What bothers me about the second edition, and it simply hasn't gone away, is the scale. that this other addition is twice the height of the other two parts of this complex. I don't think it bothers the other people on the board, but that is my objection, that it is out of scale with this complex.
You know, according to the state regulations and looking at this under the urban, densely constructed, site, which obviously that we can fit into. I understand that the scale is a little bit of a concern, but, in the email that we sent around, earlier, we look at other cities and where they have taken advantage of a historic building and in addition to it that's much taller, it seems to work. So, I have a lot of time and effort invested into getting this approved, regardless of the financial implications. I have a lot of respect for the Amos history. In fact, I have a lot of respect for all the buildings I have in the history. I mean, we tie that into how we design and develop our buildings, how we manage our buildings. So it is important to me. So all those things taken into consideration, and I respect your opinion. But I think when it's built and it's there, and you look at the surrounding buildings, and you look at the National Grid building, you look at the Federal building, you look at the State Tower building, all those buildings that are in there, it fits within the scheme of that from that direction. I understand looking at a piece of paper, sometimes it looks like it's more intrusive than it's really going to be. And I think when we were on site, especially with the Federal building being right there, and in some instances, having a taller building actually will bring some prominence back to the entire site as it relates to other buildings that were built after the original Amos building, like the State Tower building, like the Federal building.
Well, as I said, I don't think that I represent this area, maybe the majority of the members of this board, and especially the ones who have spoken already. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, I'll just follow that discussion. I don't think that there is a problem with a taller building than the other two buildings. In other words, that a taller building, as you've just stated, could work on this site. We all know small sites with old buildings with large buildings next to it are contemporary. I think the issue here is only our purview in terms of context, and our comments I hope we can keep in terms of our basic review, which is the historic character of this block and its new partner here. This block is unique to the Erie Canal era. It is narrow by function of canal on the north side and horse-drawn wagons and materials going in on the south side, and that's why Water Street's the width that it is. To that end, the two buildings, except, thank God the Amos building was saved, even though that may not be the opinion of many. I've known architects who said you should take the thing down. It's a glorious...
You don't have to thank God.
No, I've had, no, but it's a glorious...
15 minutes work of the curse.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I hear you, thank you. Well, then I thank you, because the craftsmanship in the facade of that building is remarkable of a period. So, the guidelines we have as historic context and the Secretary of Standards regarding how we look at what was there as leading to what its future should be, looks at scale, looks at texture, materials, context. Yes, there are taller buildings next and around in big cities. I don't think that reason that the Federal building is a tall building of a contemporary nature can just say that any tall building can go on this site. I would suggest that the analysis of the fundamental characteristics of this block and its buildings, which is a narrow, long block, and it could be fully built out, this full site footprint as you've got it, but there needs to be a response to the scale of the existing two buildings, the Amos building and your addition that you put in, within your proposal for a taller building. I don't see that in this solution, and that's a large general comment. So I think what I'm saying is that I do not see this scheme as appropriate. And in small details, even your fenestration of the wall materials, which granted the lines here, I don't know exactly what you're doing with those panels. The lines make it look like large bricks, which I don't think is your intention. Can you tell me just what that panel section would be?
That's my question.
In other words, this material right here, those panels, can you tell me what they are?
So that would be a Rubicon type product.
A metal building, a metal facade?
Metal, yeah.
Okay.
A composite metal panel, which, a lot of that stuff gets where the plan is going to.
Oh, I understand, but the fact that you've said a metal building, have you submitted that to us before? I'm sorry. Okay, thanks, then fine.
Some material,
I just,
some material.
as I said, I'm trying to get a fair understanding of what you're doing. I didn't expect that. I expected something like a cement board or a material that picked up some masonry
Phase
character.
two. Cement, is phase two have,
Wait a
cement
minute,
or?
sorry. No, I'm just talking in general. I don't wanna get down to you did or didn't do anything. I'm just saying in general, the paneling there makes the scale of the panels, that I don't see as being reinforced by anything, well, the new building, yes, but not the Amos building, because you did use those kind of panels here. So I'm looking for the new proposal you're making to really address more of the contextual design features of the rest of the site. I'll leave it at that.
I agree with what Bob is saying, with one exception. He called this an addition to the Amos
Yeah,
building.
that's a good point.
And I don't believe we should consider this an addition to the Amos building. I think we should consider this an attached building to the Amos building. I don't understand what a hyphen is. It's a new word to me, but, you know, if we're gonna call this attachment a hyphen, it's my opinion that it should be a hyphen that is related to the Amos building, not to the new building. And to have this attachment extend to the mass scale and size of the new building, which we're attaching to the historic building, I think is totally inappropriate. I think that there should, the Amos building should stand as a historic structure to which we are attaching a new building, which should conform with everything that Bob described, but that the attachment should read separately and independently and not enforce the scale and size and appearance of the new building that is being attached to the Amos building on the historic block.
I appreciate your point about new building and addition. I think you're right on with that. It's a different ballgame.
Say that again?
Are you talking about changing the material of the hyphen?
I heard what you
The
said, Dan, but
height
I
of the
don't
hyphen.
The
understand.
height, yeah.
The height of the hyphen?
Yes,
Yeah.
the hyphen
the
is
height.
10 stories high. I think it should be whatever the Amos building.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So you're saying if this were,
Let the
If the
Amos
building
building
started here.
stand alone as a historic building. We're attaching a new
I see
building
what
to
you're
it.
saying.
Let the attachment read as an attachment, not as a part of the new
Yeah,
building.
and on the upper floors, you're saying the hyphen has no other side. That's the point. It doesn't work
Yes.
as a hyphen when you take it up past the scale of the Amos.
Mark, is this intended to be clear glass, colored glass?
In the color class,
Hmm?
Yeah, got it.
yeah.
You haven't got it. Okay, any other comments? Because what I'll do is I'll just ask for comments from the board and send back to the zoning department.
I think the only other comment I would add, and it goes back to the justification of your proposal for a taller building, having some reference to the scale appropriateness of the site and buildings. And that would include the treatment of the large sets of windows on the upper floors. This is a massive facade of regular patterns, much more like the industrial buildings over on West Ave.
That's okay, but
Yeah.
please understand that we've been through 3 or 4 versions of window with
Yeah.
the landmark preservation board. I mean, this is what.
Well, nothing's been approved. I
I
mean,
understand, but
Well, we
part of
don't
the
approve,
problem
we
of
just
coming back is
Yeah.
these windows,
No, that-
we've been through 3 or 4 meetings with you guys, and this is what
Well.
the conclusion was
well, we,
at the time.
yeah, no, I hear you, and I appreciate the timing and the meetings and all the complexities. What I'm trying to say is, your scheme can be enhanced. Well, I won't say any more. Just looking for more justification of what you're proposing to do.
I understand too, like how the encroachments are done. You'll hear the word encroachment, but it's on the north
It's on the
elevation
other
where
side, yeah.
it's 6 inches, and then on the west elevation where.
So the south side street front is, in other words, the south facade facing the Federal Building, there's no encroachment required, right? Thank you.
My comments are that I agree with Dan, and with Julia, and with some of the other board members, that being taller is not an issue. Having it read as a separate building, to me, is not an issue. Bob, you were making a comment about being sensitive to the block being long and narrow.
The standards of the.
I personally think that with this building getting taller, being narrow accentuates that. I really do. But that's my own
I
personal
think it's one of the best sites in the city for a new building.
Yeah.
I don't think this is the one. Sorry.
But at the same time, I think those are my thoughts.
And please, fundamentally, I'm trying to apply the Secretary of Standards
Right.
to this site in a new context.
In a new building.
I believe in that. We look at compatibility and the fact that it differentiates. I think we've met all these things, especially eliminating the encroachments.
Okay, so we're not, I'm trying to be
Okay,
absolutely clear.
Again, I just want to be clear because I don't want to overstep our jurisdiction. Our jurisdiction is not to approve or disapprove. Our jurisdiction is to comment. So, Kate, what do you feel you have as a comment right now?
He's never been this quiet for so long.
For so long? Is that true? Is that true?
I think this is a complex issue. We've been here a long time. If I could, I'd like to ask every board member to just make a quick comment and keep it as for Kate's edification so she can write it and make it as short and concise as possible. And what I would suggest is to relate the comment to whether or not you think what's been presented today is sufficient. If not, why?
Well, go a little bit further. Well,
let's-
no, my point is that we are making the comments to the planning.
We're making comments to the zone.
Zoning.
Zoning.
So zoning has.
And it will be
zoning-
going to the planning commission
and
because of
zoning
other.
is looking for what issues to be determined here.
Our comments relative to our mission, which are the standards.
But the zoning issues,
Zoning has many things to look at beyond our comments.
Right.
Our comments are from the Landmark Preservation Board, period, end of sentence.
And this is in
As it
regard
relates to the issues.
to the, yeah, this is a project site review comment, so they're looking at,
let me just say one further thing, and I appreciate your patience here. From the zoning's point of view, they probably need to know whether a tall building is appropriate for this site or not.
That in your comment.
And,
Dan.
Go through it again. I think the 10-story building is appropriate. Nobody's mentioned the fact, I think this is the first time he's been here, that the driveway entrance is on the north side. I think that's appropriate and significant. I have, the 10-story building doesn't bother me, except that we are considering it as an attached building, and I don't think that that has been historically appropriate in the way it's handled. I believe the attachment is the issue. More than the building. I'm not sure that we have all updated information on what the facade is and some of the things that Bob was going over. But generally, I would like to see this building read more directly as an attached building, not as an addition to the Amos block.
Okay, Tom?
Well, I've already spoken. And again, the details, I am okay with the details, some of which I was not so happy with in the beginning. So again, as a complex, the scale is my objection, not the details, not so many of the details.
Bob?
I also believe that a taller building than the adjacent Amos building is a possible and appropriate solution. I think it is a separate building, and that a taller building would be a separate building, considered as a separate building, that meets the fundamental pattern, scale, and material context of the historical defining characteristics of that block. I think this proposal, as we see it, does not yet do that.
Julia?
I do not have a problem with the scale of the building and having a 10-story building. It should be an attached building, not an addition to, and I think work needs to continue to develop how that is achieved from the Amos building in terms of materials and how the materials are done.
I have no issue with the 10-story building. I have issue with the scaling of it in relation to the Amos. Along with Dan's comment about the hyphen, I think the hyphen accentuates the Amos building, but maybe the hyphen doesn't share the same roof line as the rest of the addition or the rest of the new building. That might help offset that scale, that massing. Just the overall fenestration pattern of the building, I think can be detailed slightly different to make it seem less massive. And the materials on the outside, I'm having a hard time imagining that for the scale of the building.
Can I make one addition to
Sure.
the comment? What I think will really help is to do a mass model, a physical three-dimensional mass model to understand how the pieces, the adjacency of the Amos building and its second addition to this new building. I really think that will be an important aspect.
I'm relatively new to this, to this situation, so I don't really feel that I have the knowledge to comment terribly a lot. I do agree with Dan, and I do agree with some of the things the other board members have said about scale, about the fact that it, to me, looks like it should be a separate building, not an attachment to the Amos block. Other than that, I'm still just listening and learning, so, thank you.
Kate, do you have what you need?
I have a lot. And what I would say, actually, to Tom's comment from earlier is that if there's anything in the minutes that you feel has been left out, please always make that comment. I think that I have enough to, I'll
Sure.
boil it down.
And maybe it should be circulated to the chairman or the whole committee as a check, to review.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to do
This is
before sending
difficult.
it to.
And the last comment I'll make.
I would just like to say the first comment is that what you've brought today is not what was
Right.
given, and that's going to
If
be
you could see that
zoning.
Kate gets a copy of this.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
My last
Yeah.
comment,
Yeah, good. Make sure James
Again, I
shares that.
apologize,
That's all
this was supposed to be.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean,
my
this
last
was done a
comment,
week ago.
going along with Julia, and I know this is tough in mass modeling, but I would like to see more specificity in color and material for the panels,
Yeah.
for the color of the glass, and whether that can be done in a CAD adjacent to a mass model or something.
Yeah. I know, I understand. You know what, it's a good, you're making a very good
We need to
point.
get to a point where, as a developer, I felt comfortable to kind of get to the next step.
Right.
Well, as an
Well,
example,
I would say here, we do have a little disagreement, but I read the majority of the board not having an issue with the size of the building.
a tall building, I don't think,
Not
I don't think we
having,
should say 10 stories.
No, I'm just saying a taller building, that's what I said, with a taller building, the fact that the easement is out of the way,
Yeah.
the fact that the parking's on the north side, all of those are major steps forward.
That it's not an addition, that it's
And
a
that we
separate building.
have decided to treat this as an adjacent building.
I would just say that the treatment is just how the board is reviewing it,
Right.
because zoning
Right.
and
Right.
codes are seeing it as a single.
Correct.
Functionally, it's a single building.
Just a comment to your point about the height limit. In our last meeting, it was determined to get rid of it, to actually make it look taller, so that it read through the building. You know, so.
Well, I'm looking at it as trying to figure out what, you know, along with Dan's comment about,
I mean, literally. that
Reducing.
was, programmatically, how it steps out here doesn't.
Yeah, you'll
help
have to
the
solve
case,
that,
But
too.
you'll have to solve that.
Huh?
The point is that it reads through, literally, physically,
Okay,
not literally.
thank you.
I'll get these today.
Okay, so,
Investors in California, so I get to wake them up early.
Okay, good.
That's it, yeah, or
Make sure-
whenever he's going to
Make
bed.
sure you set his hair on
Wherever he's
fire.
going.
I admired that the other day. I like it.
The catalog of Williams and Cat. Williams and
Oh, Williams
It's the catalog.
Yeah, yeah.
Believe it or not, I'm her size to fit in the catalog, so.
I think your rubber band felt, I don't know if you need it or not, but for your.
And it was on, it was on sale.
thanks.
No, I've heard of those. Okay,
There was another gentleman here.
yeah, he left. Do you know what he was?
Yeah, I do.
He was a
his
human.
name is, yeah.
Sorry.
Actually, I'm forgetting
No,
for a
no,
moment
we're
what
still
his
on.
first name is. His last name is,
Dan McCarthy.
it's Dan. Dan McCarthy. He owns 107, 109 Wendell. and he has, approached us, approached me and Codes about some issues with, neighboring property. So we'll be getting a C of A.
Where's 109 at Wendell?
It's,
It's in Sedgwick, yeah, it's in Sedgwick, yeah.
What's the cross street?
it's our famous building. Or is it a different building?
It might be a different building. I don't know, 101, it's 101 Wendell.
Oh, 101.
Wendell,
Sedgwick.
yeah.
Off
Yeah,
of
it's off
Sedgwick
Sedgwick,
Drive,
yeah.
coming up.
And, so there's some fencing issues there, they had to remove some, he asked the neighbors to remove some trees that were coming into his property. I think that's the story anyway. Or they needed to be trimmed, but they were trimmed completely off at about 8 feet worth of trunk. That's all that's left in this line of old cedar going, trunks of old cedar. Anyway, so there's some issues, that have been vexing Mr. McCarthy, and, together with Codes, we're sorting out what needs to come before the board and what we go.
That was my
So-
question, where's our jurisdiction?
Yeah, it'll be a C of A. One.
All right,
Yep.
anything else?
No.
Motion to adjourn.
Make a
We're
motion to
adjourned.
adjourn.
We are adjourned.
We are
I
adjourned.
vote in
Thank you.
favor.
Okay. And thank you for your patience with these things.
Yeah.
We had 3 difficult things here today.
Right.
It's very difficult.
Yes.
A lot of borderline stuff here. It's,
Okay.
geez.